Welcome back. Our folks here in Eugene, good to have you with us. For our folks out and about across Lane County, great to have you with us as well. And for those of you watching at home, hope you're nice and cozy. Snuggle in. We got a good hour and a half or so ahead of us here tonight. Just answering a few questions, some really good stuff around how one size does not fit all with any of these things. And trial and error is definitely your friend. Some of these things are going to work really, really great for some kids and not for others. And one of the moms here tonight was saying how something that works in some situations with some kids is a trigger for other kids. So Dr. Ross Green, who came up with the collaborative and proactive solutions model that we're going to look at tonight, has a great saying: never let a good meltdown go to waste. Right? I will say that again and again. Never let a good meltdown go to waste. When you have a situation where the kiddo feels triggered, you're complimenting the one kid and the other kid gets really, really ticked off over it and they kind of get in your face over it. That's a meltdown sort of situation there. You've learned something really valuable about your kiddo. You've learned something. Don't let it go to waste. You've learned that if that's a trigger, pay attention to it and see if we need to adjust our course of action with those kiddos. All right, are we ready for our parental mindfulness, our parenting mindfulness moment number 5? This one is mainly going to be a grown-up one. This is the wishing well activity. Well wishes for difficult people. I want us to try this because as people who care about kids in the community, we will sometimes interact with people who just don't get it. They are doing the best they can also, but you will find professionals, people within the system, educators, parents, grandparents, neighbors who just don't get the work that you're doing with the kiddos. And it can be really difficult to take. So what I'm going to offer tonight is a mindfulness activity that you can do when you notice that you're having one of those moments where you're dealing with a difficult person, a person who just might not be getting it. I would caution, I wouldn't necessarily generalize this onto the kiddos maybe just yet. Maybe if they're dealing with someone at school that's hard, or a neighbor or something like that. But in terms of difficult people, and even thinking about parents and family situations and stuff like that, I want to hold off on that for this activity. This one I want to really focus on us kind of as the parents. So if you open up your notebook there to page 39, you can see this activity. You can walk through it whenever you'd like to, but I'm going to walk you through it tonight, so you don't even have to look at your books. So what I want you to do is everyone here and out in virtual land and at home, get in a good, comfortable space. Some people like hands on your thighs, or hands crossed, or just kind of in a good, comfortable posture. And maybe start off by just taking a few of those big, deep tummy breaths in through your nose. Hold it, out through your mouth. Great. Maybe another 1 or 2 of those. If you feel comfortable closing your eyes, go ahead and do that as well. Just go to your breathing. Listen to the sound of your breath moving in and out. Next, I would like for you to bring to mind a person with whom you may have had a difficult experience. Someone you find challenging to be around. A conflict you may have had with someone. Try to come up with someone specific. And this is a person you're going to practice wishing well tonight. Now, I'd like for you to imagine right now that you're feeling happy and at peace. You don't actually have to feel this way right now, but I want you to imagine that you feel that way. Imagine doing something you really like, something you really enjoy, spending time with friends, laughing, smiling. pay attention to how you feel as you're imagining yourself feeling happy. And I want you to affirm yourself. I want you to say these statements to yourself inside your head. I would like to feel a lot of happiness and peace within myself. I would like to feel a lot of happiness and peace within myself. I want to feel healthy and strong. I want to feel healthy and strong. I have a hope for deep happiness and abundant joy for my life. I have a hope for deep happiness and abundant joy in my life. Now next, I want you to imagine those positive feelings are actually warm, and they begin to grow and expand as you pay attention to them. Imagine that they have a color to them, and this warm, growing color begins to cover you. Pay attention to the quality of the color. What does it look like? Is it bright? Is it soft and muted? And imagine it just starts at the top of your head, moves down your shoulders, through your arms and your fingers, into your core, through your legs, your knees, down to the tips of your toes. Now imagine extending this warm, growing color of good feeling onto the person you find difficult. Imagine that this peace, this happiness, this health, strength, and joy covering that person from the top of their head down to the toes of their feet. And as this is happening, I want you to silently say to yourself, I wish you well. Say it 3 more times as a positive, peaceful declaration over that person. And if you'd like, you can even put your hands kind of over your heart. And one last time, take that all that love that's in there and all that peace, and just extend your hands out, and even say, if you'd like to, out loud, I wish you well.
I wish you well.
Yeah. Awesome. Then as you're ready, you can let your attention come back into the room. And when you're ready, you can open up your eyes. All right. How'd that feel? Okay? Good. This one's a little more challenging. You know, it's a little easier when we're just focusing on ourselves, but extending this to other people. This is a great way, though, if we're getting hung up, if we're getting caught in one of those tough feelings and those conflicts with another person, doing this visualization or even just saying those words in your head in that moment as they say that snarky comment to you in the checkout line or over the phone from the school the 3rd time that week, this is a place you can go to. I wish you well. Right? Just start practicing that. They're doing the best they can. I wish you well. It really frees you up to kind of be who you are and who you need to be in that moment. All right. Nice work. So, as I mentioned tonight, we are getting into lots more of the actual tools, the nuts and bolts. We've looked at getting to know yourself. What's going on within ourselves, our attachment styles, our brain, our body, our nervous system, our own history. We've looked at getting to know our kids. We've looked at the developing child through the lifespan and how trauma impacts that. We've also looked at just the ACEs study and how trauma kind of impacts all of us across our culture. Now it's the kind of so what? So what's next? What do we actually do with all of this knowledge? What are some things we can do to help things get better? Tonight, we are really going to focus on doing some problem solving. We're going to look at how to connect with our kids through doing problem solving. So it's not just discipline, fix the problems, get things better. It's, can we do that and build trust, and strengthen attachment, and actually heal some of the trauma that's happened through the process of problem solving? So we're going to look at kind of changing our thoughts about behaviors as an intervention to doing better problem solving. We're going to get to the roots of the problem and figure out what is keeping that happening again and again. We're also going to do some assessment of missing skills. You're going to have a tool by the end of tonight where if you've got a consistent problem, like some of you have actually talked to me about tonight already, you can pull out this tool and start doing some actual assessment on what's going on here. What skills might be missing that are keeping this problem happening again and again and again. So you'll be a good assessor of lagging skills after tonight. And then we're going to look at some plans. If we know they're missing some skills and we know that this is a problematic place for them, what are some things that we can do, some ways to get from point A to point B? And then we're going to actually learn the steps for problem solving with your kids. 3 steps to successfully build skills, strengthen attachment, and actually get your expectations met as a parent. So I'm going to start off with a little story. Those of you who have done my introduction to trauma-informed trainings through Every Child may recognize this story. I feel like it fits really well with our collaborative problem solving. This is a story about a kiddo named Andy. So Andy is a 7-year-old who is in foster care and has already had lots and lots and lots of placements, lots of placement disruptions. And he has just been placed in a new home, the new foster dad. They got a brand new start, right? He's got a blank slate, right? Well, maybe not, because we know that this kid's already bounced again and again, right? So we're already kind of thinking in our heads, what's up with this kiddo? Then we maybe have some reports and some things that we may or may not have heard through records, through notes, through caseworkers, through therapists, through previous foster homes. But we're kind of getting the picture that this kid has some labels placed on him. Some things like he's oppositional and defiant. Anyone heard that one? Right? Our great junk drawer DSM diagnosis, which means we don't know what the heck's going on, but we don't like it, right? Which means they're having conflict with adults, problematic relationships with adults on a consistent basis is kind of the language that the DSM uses. So he's oppositional, he's defiant, which means he's not following the rules and he's going to kick back a little bit. He doesn't follow directions, and he's sneaky, and he tells lies. So this is kind of the little suitcase this kid's bringing with him. They call this like the invisible suitcase. He's got all those labels that are following him everywhere he goes. So very well-meaning foster dad says, okay, we got this kiddo who tells lots of lies, who's sneaky. We are going to lay down the law with this kid, right? We're going to bring him in. We're going to tell him all the rules of the house, and we're going to get this nipped in the bud from the get-go. So he starts going through lots of the rules, and I won't tell you all of them, but I'll tell you one of them. One of them was, when we eat food, it stays in the kitchen, right? Sound reasonable? Yeah. And there's probably some good reasons why Dad had this rule. When we eat food, and he was pretty flexible. You can have, we got snacks, we got all kinds of food, but when you eat food, it stays in the kitchen. So he lays down the law, gives the rules. Day goes by, looking like things are going pretty well. Then a few more days go by, and Dad starts noticing crumbs up the stairway. And Dad starts noticing wrappers, and is noticing food missing from the cupboards. And he goes into Andy's room, and what does he find? Andy's got a stash of food under his bed. At which point, Dad lays down the law. Andy, food stays in the kitchen. Rules of the house, that's just the way things are going to be. So Dad's feeling pretty good about himself. I'm being really strong, I'm being really firm, I'm being consistent, and at this point I'm just kind of giving the rules and the expectations. And it fixes it right away, right? No, not with Andy. This happens again and again and again. At this point, foster dad is starting to think some other things, right? Besides just, I'm going to tell you the rules. What's he probably thinking? We've got to go a little further with this. We're going to maybe have to start doing some consequences, maybe some punishments, maybe some rewards. We're going to use every tool that we can, because he is a kid in foster care after all, and there's rules around what we can and can't do. But we're going to use all those to the best of our ability. But it just keeps happening. This is a consistent problem, and Andy's feeling upset. Foster dad's feeling upset. Without understanding Andy's world, it's easy to peg him as that ODD kid. The kid who's just not following directions. He's sneaking around, he's taking things, and he's telling lies about it. No, promise I didn't take it. Promise I don't know how it got there. Anyone heard that one before? I don't know. Must be someone else's food. So he's got a lot of these explanations. But it's really easy to start doing some labeling. And it's very easy for foster dad to start putting some labels on this for himself and for Andy as well. Maybe even going down to the red brain or the blue brain. All right? The blue brain is emotional, and it's prone to insult, right? Remember that? So he might be feeling a little insulted here. Wait a minute. This is my household. I deserve some respect here. I took this kid in after all, and he's just not following my rules, not following my expectations. He's taking offense to the behavior, and at worst, it might even escalate to a red brain situation where dad gets so dysregulated and feels so disrespected that he starts maybe doing some shouting or some things that are not helping the situation. So he's kind of stuck in this conventional thinking triad here. This is our cognitive triad that comes from cognitive behavioral therapy. It's a good way to just kind of look at our feelings and our actions and our thoughts and see what's going on here. And if dad's thought, foster dad's thought is, what's wrong with this kid? What is wrong with him? Can we get some sense into this kid's head? This kid is just not listening. What feelings are going to follow that? That thought leads to either there's something rotten about this kid, or there's something rotten about me. Either this is just a no-good kid who's not listening, who doesn't like to follow directions, and just doesn't want to do what the grown-ups are saying, or maybe I'm such a poor parent here that I can't even get a kid to follow directions. There's some real negative thinking involved in that, right? Something wrong with him, something wrong with me, and the behaviors that follow that negative thought process is that we're going to treat him like he's being disrespectful. Treat him like he is just a kid who's not wanting to follow the directions. So let's take that thought away, shall we? And let's find another one. We're going to go to a trauma-informed way of thinking here. Remember last week when we talked about Bruce Perry's revolutionary statement, instead of what's wrong with him, we're going to say what happened to him. What happened to this kid? You see how that shifts things a lot? Now it's no longer what a rotten kid or what a rotten parent. It's now we've got, wow, what happened to this kid? He missed out on something. Something is really, really missing here. So at that point, the feeling that comes is curiosity. We can work with this, right? This is no longer anger. This is, what happened here? And when we're curious, we're a lot more likely to be in our green brain. Right? Green brain wants to learn, remember? That's its whole job. So it wants to know what happened here, what skills are missing, and how can we get this better? I bet you there's a way to do this. So we're going to act with compassion and understanding. This is a kid who's been hurt. This is a kid who missed some skills and had a story that he never asked for. And now he's at my house, and I get an opportunity to help work with him to figure out what's going on. So we're going to go all the way back even to week 1 in our attachment cycle, and our attachment styles. Think about what might have gone on for Andy. So I'll tell you a little bit of Andy's backstory here. So Andy had a single mom who was hooked on methamphetamines. Little Andy, growing up, would reach out for needs. And his mom, due to her addiction, was not always able to tend to his needs. So he had a felt need. I'll give you a really basic one. Hunger. This kid would be hungry. He would reach out for food, and a lot of times the adult response was mom was not there. Sometimes mentally not there, sometimes physically not there. Mom would go out seeking drugs and doing the things that she needed to do to get her meth, and sometimes she would be gone for a long time. So Andy learned something at that point. Number one, when you reach out for grown-ups, sometimes they're just not there. Can you see how the roots of an avoidant attachment style start to develop here? When I reach out, no one's there, so who takes care of me? I do, right? Then he learned some other lessons that weren't so great either, because sometimes when mom would come back home, she would bring people with her. And they would be on benders using meth for days on end, it seemed like at times. And Andy would still get hungry. And sometimes he would reach out for help from anyone who was at the house. And sometimes when he did that, he got hurt. So another lesson he learned was that sometimes when you reach out for the people that you need to take care of you, they hurt you. So you see some fearful, disorganized attachment that's developing there. You reach for help, and you get hurt. So that started a different kind of behavior for him. He learned that whenever mom brings people into the house, I go to my room and I lock my door any way I can. I get safe and I wait for the noises to stop before I come out. And he learned that when he did that, it lasted a long time sometimes. The grown-ups could be partying for seems like days on end at times. So there's little Andy just trying to stay safe. And he's still hungry, right? So he is a savvy kiddo. He learned, number one, whenever you see food, what do? You take it, you store it. And where is the safest place in the house? Your room, of course it is, right? So this is the logic that was built within his little bitty attachment style. Right? Was he learned that I can't always trust grown-ups. Sometimes they're there, yeah, but sometimes they're not. And even when they are there, you can't ever tell when they're going to leave and not come back for a long time. And you can't even always reach out to the ones that are there, because sometimes they're okay, sometimes they're not, and sometimes you reach out for help and you get hurt. So it's like you just kind of learned to take care of yourself. He learned some things about himself also. He learned, I'm not important. I'm not even always seen. I'm not understood. I don't matter. He also learned some things about relationship. Relationships can be scary. Relationships can be dangerous. And relationships can be unpredictable. So I'm not saying his mom was an awful, evil person. She was doing the best she could and had her own story that probably had some trauma involved in it also. But at that point, she had some moments where she could connect with him and some where she couldn't. So even when you feel close to people, you just don't know how long that's going to last. So an insightful way, instead of just, I'm going to lay down the law, and I'm gonna be really firm and consistent and make this kid do what I say, we're gonna look at this through the lens of insight. This is Dr. Green's phrase, the other phrase that I'm gonna say a lot of times tonight. Kids do well if they can. This is your go-to. When you're seeing a problematic behavior, this is the phrase to tell yourself, especially when a kiddo has experienced trauma. Now, I believe this about most kids, that they would prefer to engage with parents in a way that feels good and that's helpful and where they get to keep all their stuff and all of their privileges. And it's like if it's keep my stuff and keep my privileges, or lose all my stuff and have someone mad at me and yelling at me, most kids are going to choose this. But the skills to be able to follow through are sometimes there and sometimes not. And if you're dealing with the situation that keeps coming back again and again and again, this is the question to start asking yourself. And keep in mind that especially in a situation like Andy's, while other kids were thriving, Andy was surviving. His set of skills that he learned were around basic survival. So while other kids were doing Cub Scouts and having sleepovers and learning to play chutes and ladders with their parents and cooking hamburgers on the grill, and Andy was learning how to seek and find anything that will keep him sustained and to hide it and stash it really, really well. And he also learned to do that without the help of any grown-ups, right? This is a savvy kid. It's not always safe to be able to do this. So you start to see the skill set that Andy has here and why this behavior is not going to be fixed by a simple set of rules or even punishments or even rewards. We got a much deeper level of going on there. And I would say demanding that Andy just get it. Just stop it, Andy. Just quit breaking the rules is demanding a set of skills from him that he doesn't have. And when you ask anyone to do something that they don't have the skills to do, you're going to get a couple of things. You're going to get some frustration within yourself, and you're going to get some frustration within the other person. Now, if I asked you all to go out and run a marathon with me tonight, who's in? Anybody? And if I assumed that you're oh, we got a taker? All right, we got one. But if I assume that your resistance to my request is because you just, you don't want to or you don't respect me, we're going to be in a bad spot here, right? But if I assume that, you know what, maybe there's some missing skill, maybe there's some training that hasn't been done, maybe we'll get there eventually, but right now I'm assuming that maybe you got some missing skills. And if that's my assumption, we can work together. Because we can work on the skills that it takes to run a marathon. A lot of us could. I don't know, maybe. But thinking about this for our kiddos, we want to work with them to be able to build the skills that they might be missing. So this phrase, kids do well if they can, it also helps explain that frustration. They would be doing well if they could. Something is in their way. They're missing something. They would much rather have you smiling at them than frowning, upset, or losing it. And it also takes the offense away. No longer is this about a rotten kid or a rotten parent. This is about a kid who's missing some skills. So this is our phrase. He's doing the best he can. This must be one of those skills that he's missing. So I want you to think about this. Think about giving what seems like a reasonable expectation, and it's met with this. Anyone been there? Okay, here's what I want you to do for just a second here. I want you to either pair up or just on your own, think about what is one of those expectations that you have that seems really simple but gets met with this. So take just a minute. I want you to think about it. Make this kind of real world. So is there something in your world right now that seems like a pretty simple, pretty reasonable expectation and is met with a lot of frustration from your kids? Take a minute and go for that. Let's narrow it down to one. How about that? Okay, does this look familiar? Those of you who've been with us. We're going to walk this through our STOP model here. So if we give an expectation, look at that little girl up there. She's cleaning up her toys. Hey, go clean up your toys. And she follows through. We stay with the heart without the arrows, right? This is where we feel loved, we feel respected, we feel connected, and we feel in control. We have those core values down. We ask a kid to do something, they do it. It feels good, right? It feels right. I feel like, not like control, like I'm controlling everything, but like, wow, I gave an expectation, they followed through. Whew. Boy, small miracles some days, right? Feels pretty good. If you give that expectation, and we get our angry face there, or the shouts, or the swears, or the kicks, or the just not doing it, and wandered off and done something else. That's when we start to feel the dip in our core values. We start to feel disrespected, unloved. We don't feel in control. It just doesn't feel so good in those if it keeps progressing, we might go to that flipped lid. We might lose our rational, upstairs thinking, and what are we left with? Emotion, fight or flight, survival. And if this sounds so logical to the downstairs brain. He would be doing this if he wanted to. If he really wanted to, he would be doing this. Our downstairs brain, that part that feels really insulted, is saying, this is a power struggle. This is like, they're trying to pull something over on me. They're trying to manipulate. They're trying to, and I would even say, even if they are, that represents a very unskilled way of getting along with a grown-up. Having to manipulate in order to get your basic needs met is a hard place to be. Think about, to get your basic needs met, you fall on the floor and start kicking and screaming, and that's the tools that you have, that's all you know, or you just go and take it for yourself. You're missing some important things about relationship there, probably for some very good reasons. But if we're stuck down there in that red brain or in that blue brain, you'd be doing well if they wanted to, we're feeling angry, our actions follow. This is where our shouting, our threats, aggression, unreasonable consequences. Anyone ever been there? Right? Right? That I've given you this thing to do, you're not doing it, boom, flipped lid, and it just sounds so right to ground them for 6 months, right? Because that feels good. That's like, okay, I'm going to show you who's boss here. I'm going to get my respect one way or another. And it just sounds so logical to that downstairs brain until our lid comes back down. And our green brain says, you fool, you idiot. Don't you realize who's going to have to enforce this next 6 months? It's me, right? Green brain's going to have to do that. So we get in that space where we get a little bit unreasonable. Easy to get there, no shame. It's a very human place to go to be there. And if this is all we have to work with, is they're doing it because they want to, we're in a bad spot. So here's what we're going to do. Remember our stop model? We're going to do some grounding. I might need to take a few deep breaths. Might need to walk around the block. Might need to do the tag team parent thing. Tag, you're it. I'm going to go over here. Go drink a glass of cold water. Do anything you can to get yourself in that good, calm, grounded space. As that lid comes back down, you're going to remind yourself something. You could even use this as your grounding. This is your mantra to go to in this moment. Boom, kids do well if they can. Missing skills. So you see how that takes the fight out of it. It's no longer, they're doing this to wreck my night or wreck my life. It's, wow, they're missing skills here. Wow, what an opportunity. I've got a space here where I can possibly teach a kid a new way to relate to other human beings. I'm going to help them build some skills. I'm going to be able to do this. So that's our grounding event. They're doing well if they can, and they're missing some skills. And we're going to go to that place of curiosity. Remember in the stop model, we get curious. We're like down here. We're thinking kids do well if they can. We're thinking they're missing skills. Then we start getting curious. What skills might they be missing? And we might even take it a few steps further because we're so trauma-informed at this point, right? And we're thinking, boy, trauma kept this kid from learning these skills. And we might even go back to like, wow, in utero this happened, and this may be why it's hard for him to communicate or hard for him to regulate his emotions. Or wow, this happened to Andy. He doesn't talk to grown-ups when he needs something, right? He feels hungry and he feels scared. I get that. This is where curiosity takes us. Go into the trauma narrative with the kid. What's going on there? And then we're going to think about what are those skills that are missing. Oh, there's Dr. Green. I'm going to do a little book plug here. Dr. Green's books are fabulous. The Explosive Child was kind of his first big work on this, but the most recent one is called Raising Human Beings. Really good literature. If you go to the TIPS website, you can find a link that'll take you to all of his books. But it explains it step by step. He does a lot of description around what the skills are that are missing and how it got that way. And it'll take you through the process of how to get these skills going better for these kiddos. There's a few other books on there that I want to recommend. Lost at School. So if you got a kiddo that's having a hard time in the school system, this is a great read. It kind of talks about why that happens a lot of times. This is also a great gift that you could give to a teacher who might not quite be getting it. He even, for a while, had a thing on his website where you could like send anonymous gift baskets with these books in them, which I still think is an awesome idea. Lost and Found is kind of the sequel to Lost at School. It's a lot of narratives of schools, teachers, educators who got this model really well and started changing schools one kid at a time, and some great stories in there of things that have gone well. So, and not only did he write the book, but they did a lot of research. So he paired up with Harvard School of Psychiatry and Massachusetts General Hospital. They did the research on this model in psychiatric inpatient hospitals for kids who were hospitalized because of their behaviors. But they also did it on public school kids and kids that were in parenting programs, kids with ODD, lots and lots of kids who were missing skills. And what they found consistently was this is a model that parents can get. They can learn the steps. It takes some time, takes some practice. But what's really cool is this is a model that kids can get also. So it's not something you're doing to your kid or trying to trick them or manipulate them. It's like, wow, we are really, really working this together. We're doing this together. And what they found was after parents started doing this and practicing this, they got better at it and their kids got better at it. And after the interventions were done, like a training program or a parenting program, parents who stuck with this model, the behaviors continued to get better and better and better the longer they were done with the program, because they just became really, really experts at it. So his big idea was kids do well if they can. He got this by really observing a lot of those kids in the hospitals, in the public schools, kids who were targeted as they would do well if they wanna. And a lot of these kind of, even like the positive behavior interventions that are around trying to do things that are still motivational programs. Like when we see you doing this well, we're gonna give you a gold star or a ticket or a prize or those sorts of things. And what he found was those worked well for the kids who had the skills to do them. And so the kids were being reinforced for the behaviors that they were already really good at. And the kids who needed these interventions the most, the kids who were floundering in their schools, were the ones that never got the rewards and never got the gold stars, and they saw all the other people get those, and they started saying some things about themselves that weren't so nice. Like maybe all those grown-ups are right, and why can't I do good like my brother or my sister or like the other kids in the classroom, and some really negative things. So he flipped all of that on its head and said, what if this is not a matter of motivation? What if this is a matter of skill deficit? So for the kids who are having the most problematic behaviors, he said, let's look at it that way. They would be doing well if they could. Guarantee you they'd love to have those rewards like the other kids were getting, but they're not getting them. So we'll just try to figure out what's going on for them. Trying to figure out if maybe there's some skills that are missing. Okay, back to your expectation. Everyone have that expectation in mind? So imagine yourself saying this to your child. Please fill in the blank, right? So your very simple expectation, maybe make your bed, clean your room, put your dish away, flush the toilet, brush your teeth, whatever it is. It seems really simple. If we ask our kids to do that, and they do it, you have your expectation met. End of story. Fabulous. Nothing wrong with giving rules, giving expectations, and if your kids are able to follow them, you can kind of check out for the rest of the night. But for those of us who have expectations that don't get met sometimes, we've got a couple of things that we might need to do. If they're not meeting your expectations, please do this, and you get the nope. We've got a problem. You have an expectation, and they're not meeting it. So solution one is apply a little bit of pressure, right? What does that look like? Even think of any examples. How do we give a little bit of pressure for our kids? Please make your bed. Please get. What do we do? What's that? Count. Okay, so the countdown to meltdown, right? we're gonna, because we think, if it's not working the first time, maybe if I start putting some pressure on it, then maybe they'll get it, and and sometimes they do, and if they do, great. If it works, fabulous. No harm, no foul. Sometimes a little bit of pressure works, unless it doesn't. So it could be the count. It could be the, say it again, but a little bit louder this time. Or our face starts to change a little bit, or maybe our lids are getting a little flipped, then maybe we start giving some consequence. Well, if you don't do this, blank. Or even that big reward. Hey, if you do this, all you got to do is do this, then we get ice cream, right? And they would love ice cream. And if they're able to do it, great. But if they're not, we've got a problem here. And then we've got a kiddo who is missing a skill. You've asked them to do something that they are not able to do in that exact moment for some good reasons. And now we think making their life worse is going to get them on our side. I think if we get real angry with them and start making lots of threats or consequences, that all of a sudden they're just going to get it and we're going to be all fine and dandy. I'm seeing some heads shaking here. Doesn't always work. Sometimes it does, and if it works for you, great. And if it works for that kid, for that problem, great. But if not, maybe we need to shift gears. Maybe we need to change things because there are some limitations from these pressure motivation sorts of models. There are some things that motivational approaches are really good at. They're good for making expectations really clear and known. I expect you to do this. I'm going to motivate you to do this. If you do this, you're going to get the treat or you're going to get out of something bad. This is really good at having a good, clear idea of what you want. And they get it, right? If you clean your room, you get a cookie. Simple. Really, really easy. Motivation. It's also good at providing external motivation, right? External. Which means if there's no cookie, what happens to the motivation? Down the tube, right? So this is, as long as I can keep giving enough rewards, we've got, and again, sometimes that's great. Sometimes giving those rewards gives just enough push to get them over that hump and they can get through and do that thing that's kind of hard for them, if they've got the skill to do it. Unfortunately, there's some things that motivational approaches were never intended to do. So when I'm saying motivational approaches, you know what I mean by that? Consequences, rewards. This comes from behavioral science. B.F. Skinner, this is your old high school or college psychology, the rats in the cage. You push this lever, you get a treat. You push this lever, you get a shock. Which one do you want to push, right? Which works great if you're raising a rat. But people, especially our little people, are a lot more complicated than that. So if our only tool in parenting is just rewards and consequences, we may be missing something. It was never intended to teach complex thinking skills. The kind of skills that kids need to do to learn to do the things that are hard for them. The go clean your room is actually a pretty complicated expectation if you think about it. It sounds simple, just go clean your room, but think about the focus, the language processing, the sustained focus, the anticipating consequences of actions. If I do this, then this happens next. And all that while you're still managing a lot of the trauma stuff and the fact that even sometimes grown-ups being in charge of you is a little triggering. So it was never intended to teach those kinds of skills. It was also never intended to be a method of improving a relationship. So if all we have are rules, are punishments and consequences or rewards, we may need to go a little step further in this. And there's also some unintended consequences of using purely motivational systems, rewards, and consequences for our kiddos. Dr. Stuart Ablon is a guy I trained under in the collaborative problem-solving model, and he had this phrase that his grandfather taught him: if you give a dog a name, after a while, he'll start answering to it. So if we mean it or not, if our consequences are telling their kids things like they're lazy, they're unmotivated, they're disrespectful, or they're no good, if this is kind of the internal message, it's well, if I wanted to, I would be doing it. I must not want to, therefore I must be one of these things here. And kids can start internalizing some pretty negative messages about themselves. So we're going to flip it. Let's give a different name tag up there. How about this? I am your child. I'm doing the best I can right now. I'm missing a few skills. And I need your patience for you to help me learn those skills. That's a different kind of label on a kid, right? You think they don't know they're missing skills? They get it. They know that life is hard, and if they could, they would. And if you get that with them, stand in there with them and say, okay, I get it. I get it, kiddo. This is hard for you, and I'm here to help you learn. Not to mention, we'll go beyond B.F. Skinner and look at the most recent research around really changing behavior for good, like not just do it when I'm watching, but changing the whole behavior of a child. The number one indicator of lasting behavioral change, any guesses? This is usually the right answer in my classes. Relationship, right? A positive relationship with a trusted caregiver is the number one indicator of lasting behavioral change for kiddos. So, back to your expectation. If she does not meet your expectations and the pressure is not working, the motivational systems are not working, what we need to do is look at this problem in a different way. So the old way of thinking of he's just trying to get out of this, I feel disrespected, need to get control, moving to the blue zone or the red zone with our thinking, either shunning, this kid's never going to get this, or shouting, get in there and do it right now the way I asked you to do it. We're going to try to get a different way of looking at this. So instead, this keeps happening. I wonder what skills may be missing. Our light bulb, our empathy happens. This is green zone thinking. We're thinking skills might be missing. We have empathy, we have compassion, and then all of a sudden we're in business here. We can collaborate. We can build a relationship, skill building. What's up? Let's try to fix this together. What's going on in your world? Let me come in and figure this out with you, and let's see if we can't figure some things out. Now, just a quick reminder before we start talking about what skills are missing is, again, the why. And think back to, again, the first week with the tree, the roots, and the branches. Every behavior is up here in the leaves of the tree, right? Each leaf may be one of those problematic behaviors that we're trying to change. For our kiddos who have experienced trauma, remember that there's roots down here that they can't change. They can't change what happened in the past, leading to those behaviors that we see right now. So when you say kids are doing well if they can, they're missing some skills, think back to the roots on the tree. What root didn't happen, or what root happened the wrong way? And remember also that every time you work with your kid to solve some problems together, you're actually growing some new roots on their tree. So think about little Andy. He knew the way life was, but when he's in your house and you get him and you understand what's going on, and he's like, wow, I can say what's scaring me and it's not going to knock them over. They can, and I can say I need something, and they are able to help me get that. That's building some new roots on his tree. So for lots of reasons, kids are missing skills, those roots on the tree. And you got to keep in mind too, you're not usually going to see those missing skills until there's a demand for it, right? If you've got a 2 or 3-year-old and they're only at your house and everything is fine, then they go into preschool, and all of a sudden things get really dicey, you've just introduced lots more demands for skills, right? Even just coming into your house, period. is introducing new demand for skills. They've done some research on this. Actually, I think even over at the U of O, they did this study where they found kids coming into foster care situations. Remember cortisol from a few weeks ago, that stress hormone? They could measure the levels of stress hormone in kids. And they found that kids coming from really high stress, really problematic homes into really safe and calm homes, the cortisol actually rose when they went into the safe and the calm homes. It was a change. It was not what they were used to. It was a stressor. And what they found was that there's a demand for new skills, and the stress level rises. So when there's a missing skill, a demand for the skill, that's when we get our problematic behaviors. So think about just, again, a little empathy exercise here. Think about the skills that it would take, kind of the self-regulation, the emotional, intelligent, the behavioral skills that it would take to have to leave your family. Not know if you're coming back or not. Think about the skills it would take to have to start trusting adults when adults have hurt you or neglected you. What kind of skills would it take for you to have to learn all the new rules in a new home? And let's say that focus and attention are already not your strong suit, right? And then you've got some stress hormone that makes learning difficult, and then you've got this whole new realm of rules to learn. This could be really tough. Think about the skills it would take if you don't get to decide if your parents show up for visits or not. It's up to someone else whether you get to see your parent for that one time a week or not. Or the skills that it would take for you to have to be separated from your brother and sister. So, I mean, just for us in this room, if you've got someone close to you, and all of a sudden they decide, you know what, we don't get to be together anymore. That takes a lot of skill. Like little Andy at 7 trying to learn that skill. Or you have to focus on math or reading and manage all your fears and thoughts that are going through your head while you're sitting at your desk and everyone's being really quiet. Think about how much focus and attention that would take. Racing memories, thoughts, triggers happening constantly, and you got to learn math. And you got to follow along with what the other kids are reading. That takes a lot of skill. So keep that in mind, that even though it looks like these kids are missing a lot of skills, they are trying really hard just to survive. All right, so I'd like for you to open up your books now to page 42, your workbooks. This is kind of the interactive part of this where I want you to do some skills assessment on your kiddos. So we're gonna get really good at figuring out what skills might be missing for our kids. So I want you to think, at least for this exercise, pick one kiddo who may be experiencing some problem in your home right now. And as we go through this, there's going to be some sections for you to do some assessment. So I'm going to give you the big picture, and then I'm going to let you kind of go through the check boxes on your checklist there and see, do any of these sound like my kiddo? So the first one is attention, planning, and organization skills. These are what's known as executive functioning skills. Remember, these are developmentally still emerging for a lot of our kiddos. For our younger kids, those preschool age up to elementary school age, they're just barely kind of getting on board with some of these. So for some kids, it might be developmental that they're missing these skills. For other kids who should be getting it a little bit more, they might be missing it for some good reasons. But people who are good at this, their stuff is together, they're organized, they're on time, they can think ahead. They can do some problem solving like, hey, if I do this, I know this is going to be the consequence, so I'm going to not do this. That thinking ahead sort of skill. People who are not good at executive skills are people who are kind of a mess. Their backpack is always a disaster. They lose things a lot. They're not good at time management. They're not good at just kind of making those choices that keep things smooth for them. Even the thinking ahead, focusing, planning, paying attention, that's what it looks like to have a missing skill in that area. The next one is our listening and talking skills, otherwise known as the language processing skills. This is the ability to take language in and process it. This is also the ability to express language out. So there's the receptive language and expressive language. Both of those could be missing for some good reasons, right? People who are good at this are good conversationalists. They can tell you what's going on. They can put words on their needs, maybe even words on their feelings. They're good at expressing themselves, and they're also good at hearing the directions that you give to them and being able to process them well. Kiddos who are missing this skill or lagging in this skill, I've had kids describe this to me. They say, it's like my parents are talking to me, and the words just get all mixed up in my head all the time. And one kid draw like typewriters all around his head, and he's like, it's like there's words happening all over the place, and there's so many of them, and I just can't focus on them. That's what it looks like to have some difficulty. Or the other kids who say, I know what I want to say, but I just can't get the words to come out. Like I can see it in my head, but I can't get those words to happen. Can you see how life would be difficult for a kiddo who might have some language processing difficulties? The next one is dealing with feelings skills. So our emotionally dysregulated kiddos, this is the one. So this is the dealing with feelings skills. Being able to recognize a feeling, maybe even put a label on it. And this doesn't mean they don't ever get upset, but this means they get upset and they can handle it. They can do some self-regulation. They can do some co-regulation. They can talk to you about what's going on. Kids who are missing the skills of emotional regulation are kiddos who have the flipped lids chronically, who are maybe kind of constantly have that either depression or anxiety or anger like just below the surface. So it takes like that much to set them off because they're constantly walking around with all of that. Or kids who blow up really, really quickly because the emotions just hit them like a flood. That's what that one looks like. Our go with the flow skills, or cognitive flexibility. This is the ability to, like it says, go with the flow. You can change things on these kiddos. You can change the rules. You can change the plans. You can change the day they do certain things. You can change the way you drive home. And they're just fine with it. They're all good. They're able to be flexible in their thinking, and they really just kind of go with the flow. Sounds nice, right? The opposite of this are kids who change is a trigger. It is a fear. Again, probably for some good reason for some kids. When their whole world has been changed and kicked out from underneath them, and logic of, I get to stay in this person's house forever, and then, well, maybe not so much. That's would maybe lend a person to be a little bit unflexible. So you've probably seen this in some of the kiddos. So, and the last one is relating to other skills or social skills. People who are good at this can read the room. They can kind of pick up on the emotional energy that other people have, and they're able to recognize what's demanded of them in certain social situations. When they go to a new place, they kind of can sense what's going on and kind of fit in pretty well. They go to the park, and they're able to make friends and play. People who are missing this skill are missing a lot. They miss the cues. They misread what's going on. They might interpret someone who is playing and being fun as a person who is a threat, or as someone who is insulting them, and they're ready to go to blows over some of these mixed cues that happen there. They're not able to initiate play very well. They're not able to make friends or connect with other people very well. Think about this. So I want you to just take a minute and go through that inventory there. So all of these are listed there on page 42, and there's some sub-skills under each one of those. So take a minute and do this for one of your kiddos, and then we're going to do a little bit of practice in just a minute. All right. So someone during the break brought up a really, really good point about sometimes these are missing skills because they're just missing skills. Sometimes they're missing skills because they're trauma. And sometimes there's other things at play, like cognitive delays, developmental delays, that sometimes can really muddle up the works there of what's going on and why. And she brought up a really good point around if you're noticing some of these things, especially if you're trying everything you can and there's still not a whole lot happening, to maybe look into some testing, some cognitive testing, some psychological evaluations, some things that might be able to help give a little bit more explanation why kids might be missing some of these things. And if it's a cognitive delay, if it's a developmental delay, or if it's the trauma, any of those things that are happening, all of those things still give you empathy for the kid, right? You still say, wow, you're doing well if you could, and buddy, you're super missing some skills here. I'll definitely put that in the category of like fetal alcohol spectrum of disorders. You get a whole range of stuff around there that's just not going to get a whole lot better for some kids, sadly. That it's like organic brain damage that prevents some of these skills from happening. And when that's the case, you do have to do a little shifting in your expectations of what will get better and what won't. However, your empathy stays the same. You still say they're doing as well as they can and they're missing some skills. And honestly, some of the kids that I've worked with that have been on kind of that spectrum of things and have some of those cognitive delays and some of those organic impairments, the process of doing collaborative problem solving slows everything down. Gets everything a little bit more manageable, using smaller words, better pacing, slow down the communication to make it more manageable, which for kids who have those kinds of delays is really kind of nice. And it feels very respectful, and it feels like I can do this because you're not just sitting here lecturing to me about the 10 things that I'm supposed to be doing or not doing. We can deal with one little thing at a time. All right. Excellent question. Thanks. All right. So think about Andy also as we're doing this together. What kind of skills did Andy need to be able to be successful with the rules around food in his house? Any thoughts, any big categories? What was going on for Andy? What might he be missing? Foster dad said, food stays in the kitchen. Andy keeps taking food and hiding it in his room. Any thoughts?
The organizing and planning.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Some organizing, some thinking ahead.
He still thinks he needs to plan for
right.
emergency food.
Sure. Uh-huh.
When they have food and it's just
right. He's not putting the pieces together there. Yeah.
Honestly, he's not wrong. Like, he doesn't have any evidence that things are going to change to that, and that just because it's over a minute, he's not wrong.
Sure. He's probably right to feel that fear, isn't he? Yeah, right.
I think the main one is flexibility from one household and then having different rules.
Sure. There's a demand for some flexibility, like what the heck, now all of a sudden I've got this rule and I didn't before. Yeah. And even that he is right to be somewhat fearful and to be cautious. Even his ability to like recognize, what is this that I'm feeling right now? This fear, what do I do with this? Right now I'm doing the best I can, which is I'm taking food to keep myself feeling safe. This is the best I know to make that scared feeling go away. Right? He's doing the best he can. And he's also maybe missing even some of the language skills. Maybe he has difficulty putting words because that's so emotional and so difficult for him. He's having a hard time putting some words on that. Do a little bit more practice here. Do a little bit more skills assessment. So I've got a few videos here, and we're going to watch just a couple of these. And as you're watching these clips, I'd like for you to think about, so the list of lagging skills will be on the side. Think about what skills might be missing for each of these kiddos.
Wrote my name on the last one. Thank you. My 6 stickers? No, I have your 2 stickers, Max.
No, I'm supposed to get 6 stickers.
No, we changed the rule, remember? Now that you're getting older and so grown up, we're weaning you off the stickers.
Fair.
So
I
you
finished my homework.
Max, take a deep breath.
I don't want to.
Max, getting upset's not going to change it. You get 2 stickers.
I don't like this new rule, and I don't like you. It's just,
Max.
I just
Max.
don't, it's not fair. Why did you have to come here today? Why did you have to change the rule? You just ruined everything. You're an idiot. You're an idiot. You just think that you're helping me, but it's a joke. I haven't learned one single thing from you since you started. Max.
Whoa.
Stop it. Max.
Hey.
You're useless.
That is enough.
I don't want you to pay Max.
Max. Oh, hey.
Oh, that's my favorite.
Yeah. What do you think, guys? What might be missing for this kid in the situation?
A net.
A net?
I think difficulty shifting from original idea
Yep.
to plan or solution.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So he had the way things were done, which is, I get this many stickers. She changed the rule on him. Did you notice where his brain was in that? He went to emotional, down to even kind of survival, the throwing things, and I'm going to get out of here because things are so bad. Where was she with him? She just stayed with logic. She didn't meet him where he was. She's just putting on more rules. So the rules and the explanations didn't help him become more flexible in that situation, did they? No. As a matter of fact, it may have made things a little bit worse. Any other skills that might have been missing for Max here?
Emotional regulation.
Yeah. Emotional regulation. You see it? It doesn't feel fair, doesn't feel right, blue brain, down to a red brain pretty quickly. Because that sensation of this isn't fair just completely blew him out of the water. He was not able to get through that. We're going to maybe come back to some of those later. I'm going to go ahead and get us into the problem-solving part, though. Because once you have a handle on the lagging skills piece, so we've changed our thinking, right? Kids do well if they can. They're missing some skills. We've done our skills assessment. And by the way, I would actually recommend, if there's a specific problem going on with your kid, pull this skills assessment out and sit down with someone and talk about it. Like, what is keeping this problem happening again and again here? What might be, if you can go to an explanation. This is Dr. Green's other phrase, your explanation guides your intervention. If your explanation is he's just doing this for attention, you're going to treat him like that. But if your explanation is, this is a really inflexible kid who is missing that skill severely, you're gonna treat him like a kid who needs some help with flexibility. So once you got a handle on that, the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to start trying to solve some of these problems. Those expectations that you had, we're going to get those met. And the process of solving problems is going to do a few things. Working with your kid to fix this problem together is actually going to build positive attachment narrative. You're actually giving some serve and return. Remember we talked about that in the development week? Their behavior is a communication. It is a communication of a missing skill. So you're not going to ignore that communication. It's like they're shouting at you, I need help, and you're saying, well, I'm just going to ignore you and think that you're magically going to get better. You're going to magically learn that skill. No, we're going to pay attention to the communication. This is what I need. I see you. I hear what's going on. Let's get into this and work this out here. And we're doing a secure attachment activity. We're completing an attachment cycle. Our kid has a need. They're expressing that need through some really problematic behavior, and we are going to be the adult that meets that need in a different way. And we're going to show them that this is what security can look like. This also promotes brain regulation. Upstairs, downstairs, left and right, our thinking brain, our feeling brain, our survival brain are all going to be working together through this process of problem solving. It also demonstrates value to our kids, that you're worth it. And I won't lie to you. I mean, sitting down and having a conversation and doing a problem-solving strategy with your kid takes time. It takes time and it takes mental energy, and it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, especially when you're starting. But what it promotes is they are worth it to take the extra time that it takes to get this thing really figured out, to really, really meet the need of what's going on here. So we're demonstrating that they are valuable. We're also helping them learn respect. We're going to help them learn respect by demonstrating respect. This is what respect looks like. I see that you're missing something, and I'm here to help you figure it out. We're also going to teach them taking other people's perspectives. This is the way you see the world, and this is the way I see the world. And we're going to start by looking at their world, right? This is what it looks like when someone cares enough to see what's going on in your world. And if we want kids who can do that, who can take other people's perspectives and be respectful in their relationships, we got to show them how it's done. We got to do some role modeling around that. So it also it's generosity of time. You're showing them that relationships are a worthwhile venture. They're worthwhile to take the time that it takes to learn. So getting through problems, we're going to look at 3 plans for how to get through any problem that comes up. First plan, so there's plans A, B, and C. Plans A and B have some strengths and some weaknesses to them. I'm sorry, plans A and C. Plan B is going to be our plan for actually helping skills get better. But we got to have something to do as some of the other times as well. So plan A is what's known as the my way or the highway. This is the imposing will upon a child. This is, here's my expectation, you get some kickback, and you are going to force them to do it. You're going to impose your will upon this kid. So whether it's clean your room or brush your teeth, you are going to stand there and make them do it, or else you don't leave. What this does is it ensures that your expectation gets met. However, what it does not do is train any new skills. It's just parents make you do stuff sometimes. It also doesn't reduce the explosive behaviors. As a matter of fact, throwing plan A at a kid who's right about to flip their lid is probably a good recipe for seeing that lid completely gone at that point. However, plan A is a plan you should use sometimes. When there is a safety concern, use plan A. Don't sit and collaborate. Don't talk about it. Keep your kids safe. If it's a safety issue, you got to do it sometimes. Or if the expectation is, if the values are high enough in your household that you're willing to endure a meltdown through it, sometimes that would be an okay time to do plan A as well. But you know, you're going to get your expectation met, but you're not doing a whole lot more than that. The irony of this is a lot of times we go to plan A in these power struggle sorts of moments, right? We feel like we have to dig in our heels. We might say some negative things about ourselves, like if I don't follow through, what kind of parent am I? Or if I don't stick to my guns, how is this kid ever going to learn to fill in the blank? Anyone ever been there? I've been there, where you say those things to yourself, like what are people going to think? What are my parents going to think? What are the neighbors going to think? What's the school going to think if I don't? And we get this kind of pressure within ourselves that kind of pushes us into this plan A moment, where we think if we just follow through enough, they're going to get it. Now, the irony of that is we're trying to teach them a lesson when their lid is flipped. What do they need to learn a lesson? Their upstairs brain, right? They need that upstairs brain to put 2 and 2 together. Now, also, when their lid is flipped and they're having that meltdown, their body is flooded with cortisol, the stress hormone. Cortisol, it inhibits the formation of new memories, and it makes learning very, very hard. So if we're trying to teach our kids a lesson when their lid is flipped, when we're in this power struggle moment, those are just some good things to keep in mind, is that that's the very least likely time that they're actually going to be able to learn a lesson. Their brains are not online. They're not there. And the cortisol is they're probably not going to even remember it anyway. So keeping it in mind, that's the least likely time a child will learn a lesson. Okay, plan C. This is the remove the expectations for now. This is This one's a little hard for some folks to swallow, but I'd like to phrase it this way. This is about choosing your battles. This is when you decide not everything has to be a power struggle. And the cool thing is as the grown-up, you kind of get to decide what is and what isn't a power struggle. Doing Plan C well takes really knowing your kid. It takes knowing what skills they're missing and what skills are being demanded. Like if you know that brushing teeth at the end of the day after you've had a really long, hard day is going to send that kid over the edge, you might think ahead and say, you know what? For this time right now, I'm going to choose that this does not become a power struggle. When I've done this with my kids and with kids that I've worked with, I'm really upfront about this. And I say, look, a lot of times this is what the expectations are. Right now, I can tell this is not, and neither of us are in a place where we're going to be able to get this done. However, I really want to get this fixed. You cool if we talk about this again tomorrow? You cool if we talk about this again in a few days when we're all in a good space? It's setting the stage for a good communication later down the line, and you are reducing the likelihood that this is going to be a huge meltdown power struggle when you can't handle one. But the thing is, you don't get your expectation met, right? You're removing that expectation temporarily, just for a moment. For this moment, we're taking that expectation away. And you're also not training any new skills with this step, with this plan. It's just about keeping the peace for now. But what you do is that you reduce the potential for this becoming a really explosive moment. So some good times to use this is when you have to choose your battles. If you're in line in the grocery store and you can tell this is about to be meltdown number 21 for this kiddo today, this might be a time to Plan C this for now, come back to it another time. Or if you're really working on something else, prioritize. If you're really working on the homework thing and the clean the room thing is another thing, and both of those could be equally explosive, you might prioritize and say, okay, let's fix this one first, and then we'll come back to this one later. So we're going to let this slide for now and come back to it when we're in a better space to do it. So temporary peace, but no long-term plan for helping kids learn new skills. Plan B, this is what it's all about. And when we're talking about collaborative problem solving, solving problems together, this is really, really what we mean. I mean, you have to change your thinking first, and you have to understand that kids are missing skills. But to get the skills better and to have a plan for going from problem to solution, Plan B is your ticket. It's your way to get there. This is all about reducing the explosive behaviors both now and in the future. It's like, I want to do something now that's going to save me time later. I'm going to take the time to work out something to fix this now so that we don't have 8 more meltdowns on this for the rest of the week. We're going to figure out something to make this work. We're also going to be training new skills just by doing the process of problem solving. Kids are going to get a little dose of empathy, of perspective taking, of the ability to think ahead, think about consequences for actions. You're going to walk them through doing all of that through this process here. And ultimately, if you're doing it right, you're going to get your expectations met too. Because you're not going to land on a solution with that kid unless it meets their concern and your concern. So you're going to teach them how to find solutions that work well for more than one person. Because right now, the stealing the food, or the throwing the fit, or the not brushing your teeth, or the whatever it is their solution trying to fix something for themselves that works for one person. We're going to find something that works for both of us here. So this is useful for finding long-term proactive solutions to ongoing problems. Prioritize, prioritize, prioritize. Don't try to use Plan B for everything, especially not at once. Pick your battles to fight here. Choose which one you want to do. So find something. Sometimes it's the low-lying fruit, the thing that you feel like you can really fix with this kid. Other times people will choose, this thing is just so undoable in our house, we need to get this fixed right away so that things are working a little bit better. So use Plan A when needed. If it's a safety thing, jump to Plan A. Use Plan C, especially in the beginning with kiddos. If things are in a really, really rough spot, and you're starting to work on this problem-solving thing, start using some Plan C to kind of get things in that kind of nice space again so that you have kind of the emotional currency to be able to work through some of these problems. Okay, 3 ingredients for Plan B. 3 steps or 3 ingredients. The first one is the listening step. So this takes a lot of empathy, a lot of reassurance. This starts with a neutral observation like, hey, I've noticed this thing keeps happening, right? We're not going to say, hey, you little punk, why are you constantly doing this? I mean, how's that conversation going to go, right? We're done before we start. But if we take that problem out of the center of the child and put it out here where we can look at it. Hey, Andy, it looks like keeping food in the kitchen's been really hard for you lately. Oh, I wonder what's up. I wonder what's going on for you. What's happening in your world? See the empathy here. And they might need some reassurance, like, hey, what are you trying to do here? What are you trying to pull on me, right? You know, usually the grown-ups are just telling me what's wrong with me, and all of a sudden you're asking what I care, what I feel. You might need to get some reassurance. I'm not saying you're in trouble. I just really wonder what's going on for you here. This seems really hard. What's up? What's going on, buddy? What's happening here? And give them some space to talk. Now, especially if they're lagging in their language processing skills, you might just get the shrug shoulders. Oh no. Or if they're not really big on this trust thing with grown-ups yet, you might get the brick wall sort of thing here too, and that's okay. Even if you get the I don't know, give some more empathy. Wow, it's really hard to figure this out, isn't it? Or if you get the brick wall, looks like you're not even sure that you can trust my words here right now, right? But I'm here for you. I really want to help you get this figured out here. If you get a total shutdown and they just can't figure out what it is, sometimes that's too broad of a question. What's up with this? You might, instead of doing the essay test, go to multiple choice. Hey, I wonder if it's this. You think it might be this? Gee, I wonder if you're feeling scared. I wonder if you feel threatened. I wonder if... then you can get, sometimes even just a head nod and you're in business, right? But the whole point is that you're going into their world with this. You're not assuming that you know what the answer is. You're being humble, you're being teachable, and you're really promoting a lot of respect with this kid. That this is what it looks like when someone cares about someone else enough to sit down and hear their side of it. Eventually, you'll probably come up with some sort of concern that they have. That's your whole goal, is to keep doing empathy until you find out what their concern is. Once you've got a concern, you're ready to move on to step 2. Oh, but actually, we'll skip that one for today. There's a really good video on empathy that'll be up on the website that you can take a look at. Second step is define the problem. So this is where you help them see the mysterious adult world, right? Then why you're asking them to do this in the first place. So, I hear, Andy, you feel really scared sometimes when there's no food in your room. I hear you, buddy. That sounds really hard. We could solve a problem just with that. That's all it was I feel scared when there's no food around. Hear ya. My concern as the grown-up here is, sometimes when there's food under the bed, sometimes it gets, we don't know where it is, and it gets moldy, and sometimes, ants come, or, rodents could come, or things. And you know what? I want your room to feel healthy. I want it to feel good for you. And if there's open food under your bed, and we don't know that it's there, it could start to stink, and bugs could come. I don't want that for you. You see how that works there? All I need to do, I don't need to give a big lecture. It's just, this is the way you see this problem. This is the way I see the problem. And that foster dad in the story, he had a concern, right? There was something there, or else he wouldn't have made that rule. So getting down to the heart of what's going on, what's your rule? Then once you've got both concerns on the table, you're ready to move into step 3. which is our brainstorm. This is a little bit different also. Because a lot of the parenting models will be along with us up to this point, but then they say, then you fix it for the kid and show them what they're supposed to do. This one turns that on its head. What we're going to do is we're going to invite the child to come up with a solution. So Andy, you feel scared when there's no food in your room. I want your room to feel clean and not smelly, and you know, I bet you there's something we could do to fix this. What do you think we could do? Put it right on him, right? This demonstrates that he's a part of this process, that he's valuable. And for some kids, this is the very first time anyone has ever asked them to be part of fixing something, which is a game changer for a lot of kids. Some kids are so used to being the problem that that becomes their identity. I wreck things, I break things, I mess things up. Now you're asking them, what do you think we could do to help this get better for us? You've changed their identity to someone who is possibly bringing something into the family that's going to make things better for everybody. And I've seen kids just get this really beautiful sense of pride in themselves when they start coming up with solutions. And you know, a lot of times they'll come up with some solutions that'll actually work. Now you're going to kind of help them at this point. You're going to say, you know, is this a solution we can really do? Is this something we can really do? And does this meet both of our concerns, right? It's got to meet both. So if the solution didn't meet Andy's concern or didn't meet mine, we need to keep working. Okay. And a phrase you can use at that point is, you know, that's an idea. Can you think of anything more? This is brainstorming, right? There's no wrong thing happening when you're brainstorming. So give them a moment to see what they can do to fix it, see if they can come up with a solution, and then you try it, you implement it. Actually try it. And sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes it actually works. And when that happens, it's this beautiful moment. And all of a sudden, they've got this really cool attachment cycle thing that's happened, and they've been able to put words on their feelings, they've been able to put words on what's going on, they've been able to take other people's perspectives and even think ahead. If we try this, would this fix our problem? So you're getting little doses of all of those things, and you're keeping it small. You're keeping it doable. We've got step 1, step 2, step 3. There's a cheat sheet in your workbooks. Pull that out with your kids. Make copies of this. Do what you can. Even now you get sometimes just a blank piece of paper and draw 2 lines and have 3 columns and have 1 column for the kid's concern, 1 column for my concern, and then in the middle we come up with solutions. It can be just that easy. But bringing kids into the process is really what it's all about, so that they know that what they're saying is valuable and that it's important. And a lot of times, the solutions won't work. And that's the number one thing that usually when people are trying this, they come back and they say, Corey, this collaborative problem-solving stuff doesn't work. We tried a solution and it didn't fix the problem. And I say, great. Now you know what the concern wasn't, and you're ready to do it again. And what have you lost? Nothing. You've spent time connecting with your kid. You've helped them build skills. And the more you do this, the more they start learning that this is the process. This is how we get through problems. When I've got a problem, I know I can go to my grown-up, and we've got 3 steps to go through, and we're going to come out the other side of this with a solution that just might work and might make things better. And even if it doesn't, they're not going to judge me or blame me or shame me for it. They're right there to keep it working again. So we're going to help regulate with that empathy step. We're going to help relate by showing some perspective taking in the define the problem step. We're going to resolve the issue in that invitation step, which is really pretty cool. Few things as we're ending. Doing plan B when lids are flipped is a bad idea. It does not work well. It's very, very hard to do, and we stumble over our steps. The best time possible to do plan B is when things are calm, lids are down. So maybe it's a plan A or a plan C, and then we come back and do a plan B when things are back in a good space again. Most effective when we're in that space there. If this is something that you like, there are some great resources in the community. I've got some flyers over here. So the Child Center runs like an 8-week class just in this model. And there's some sign-ups and some flyers over on the table here if you would like to connect with them. My friend Mark Beach runs that program, and he's excellent at this and can walk you through the ins and outs of how to do this with your own kids and kind of have some coaching and some mentoring for how to get through this. So you know, keep this in mind. Kids do well if they can. This takes the offense out of the behavior. Find the lagging skills. This helps promote understanding. Use those steps to problem solve. This gives a clear plan to fix problems with your kiddos. And having a plan is a great thing. Winging it is really hard, but if you know that you've got some steps to get through this problem, it feels a little more secure on your end of things. And the kids start learning it, and you start doing it together, and it can become a really, really awesome thing. Give this a try this week. Look at your action steps. I've got some activities for you to do for each step of the Plan B process. Some thinking about some lagging skills, some actually thinking about some problems to solve. Even if you just practice that empathy thing with your kiddo, just give that a try this week. See if that does anything that feels pretty good for you. And give it a try, see how it works. Shoot me some emails or come back with some stories. I'd love to see how this works out in practice with you all. All right? Have a wonderful evening. Great to see you. Come back next week and we'll learn a little bit more tools and skills around connection time with our kiddos. See you next time.